In the silence of ancient forests and the shadows of Himalayan caves, the first seekers closed their eyes, not to sleep, but to awaken. Long before scriptures were written, before temples were carved from stone, there were the rishis, visionaries who did not learn truth from others, but discovered it by turning inward. They listened not to the noise of the world, but to the soundless presence behind it. Their names echo faintly through time. Yajnavalkya, Vasishtha, Bharadvaja, pillars of the eternal Sanatana Dharma. Yajnavalkya, the sage of the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, spoke of the self that is beyond the body and mind. When asked what remains when everything external is stripped away, he answered with a stillness that shook kings. Neti, neti, not this, not that. A wisdom that pointed beyond form, beyond name, to the silent observer within all. Vasishtha, whose dialogue with Prince Rama became the Yoga Vasishtha, offered not just philosophy, but a roadmap for liberation. He spoke of the illusory nature of the world, the power of the mind, and the boundless freedom of consciousness itself. For these ancient seers, reality was not a thing to be possessed, but a veil to be lifted. What began in stillness became a current. A flow of realization passed from teacher to student, generation after generation. The Vedas became Upanishads. The Upanishads became teachings. And the teachings became lives transformed by the flame of awareness. These early masters did not seek followers. They sought truth. And in doing so, they laid the foundations for a spiritual revolution that would outlast empires, outshine armies, and outlive history itself. Before we journey forward, take a moment to reflect. If you feel the presence of this wisdom awakening within you, write this affirmation in the comments. Truth is my path. Silence is my teacher. And if this message resonates with your heart, subscribe to the channel and like this video to help share the light of these ancient masters. As centuries passed, silence became scripture. The formless truth took on language, and philosophy emerged from meditation. Then came a figure whose very existence was a bridge between ancient realization and intellectual clarity, Adi Shankaracharya. In a time when India's spiritual heart was fragmented by ritualism and dogma, Shankara revived the pure flame of Advaita Vedanta. He taught that there is only one self, Brahman, and everything else is illusion, a play of appearances upon the eternal. Shankara traveled across the Indian subcontinent before the age of maps, debates, or modern transport. On foot, through forests, across rivers, into kingdoms he went, not to conquer, but to liberate minds. His commentaries on the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, and the Brahma Sutras remain unmatched in their depth and precision. But it was not merely his intellect that moved people. It was his unwavering clarity, his fearlessness in piercing illusion, and his serene detachment from ego. For Shankara, liberation was not a distant reward. It was the truth here and now, available to any who truly sought it. From his time onward, the fire of realization was kept alive in many forms, in monasteries, in poetry, in pilgrimage. But it was in the 19th century that this fire would ignite once again with a brilliance that reached beyond borders. In a small temple near Kolkata, a priest named Ramakrishna would become the embodiment of divine ecstasy. His devotion to the goddess Kali went beyond worship. It was a living relationship with the Absolute, expressed through dance, tears, laughter, and silence. He did not teach in academic halls. He spoke through parables and spontaneous insight, revealing that God can be realized through any path, and that all religions are rivers flowing to the same ocean. Where Ramakrishna embodied the mystic's heart, his disciple Vivekananda carried the fire into the modern world. With a mind as sharp as lightning and a soul steeped in devotion, Vivekananda stood before the Parliament of the World's Religions in Chicago in 1893 and spoke not as an ambassador of a country, but as a voice of eternal wisdom. He declared that the divine lives in every being, that service to man is service to God, and that spirituality must awaken not just saints, but civilizations. Through Vivekananda, the silence of caves reached the ears of industrial nations. Yoga ceased to be an exotic curiosity and became a force for transformation in the West. But he did not simply export tradition. He redefined it. He called for strength, fearlessness, and self-realization. His words were not just sermons. They were thunder, shaking minds, stirring hearts, awakening a sleeping humanity to its divine potential. And as the world moved into the 20th century, new voices emerged, some from the shadows of solitude, others from the crossroads of cultures. Among them was Ramana Maharshi, a man who spoke very little, yet whose silence became a teaching more powerful than words. At the foot of Arunachala, he answered every question with a single piercing inquiry. Who am I? In his presence, doubts dissolved, concepts vanished, and the seeker was brought face to face with the self, not as theory, but as living truth. Ramana's life was a reminder that enlightenment is not in doing, but in being, not in becoming, but in remembering what never changed. But for others, the path was louder, more provocative. In the ashram of Pune, a mystic named Osho began to speak, not just to Indians, but to the world. He shattered conventions, challenged hypocrisy, and invited people to move beyond both East and West. His vision was of the whole human being, meditative, joyful, intelligent, and free. He called for a new humanity, Zorba the Buddha, who dances with the earth but lives rooted in the sky. His words stirred controversy, but beneath them was a laser-like clarity. He urged people not to believe, but to experience, not to conform, but to awaken. In the south of India, another figure was shaping a different vision, Sri Aurobindo, a freedom fighter turned mystic. He withdrew from political revolution to pursue a revolution of consciousness. In his ashram at Pondicherry, he envisioned the evolution of man into a higher being, a supramental species. He taught that the divine is not only beyond the world, but destined to be realized within it. His partner, The mother carried this vision forward, planting the seeds of Aurobindo, an experiment in conscious living. For Aurobindo, yoga was not escape from the world, but transformation of it. And then there was Sai Baba, enigmatic, miraculous, revered by millions. His presence inspired faith, but his message was simple: love all, serve all. He performed miracles, yes, but his greatest miracle was to turn people inward, to rediscover the divine spark within themselves. His life was a beacon of service, unity, and divine play. And though the form may be gone, the fragrance of his message lingers still. As the 21st century dawned, the ancient fire found new voices. Among them, Sadhguru, an engineer turned yogi, has brought the yogic sciences to millions around the world. With a sharp wit and piercing logic, he speaks of inner engineering, of balance between logic and mysticism. His programs reach beyond ashrams and into cities, corporations, and classrooms. His message is clear. Joy is not something to pursue. It is the nature of your being, if only you learn to be still. But perhaps no figure is more shrouded in mystery than Mahavatar Babaji. Rarely seen, never aging, existing beyond the grasp of time, Babaji is said to have appeared to select disciples over centuries. His presence radiates not from words or books, but from an eternal silence that lives outside human history. He is the living link to the immortal yogic tradition, the guardian of Kriya Yoga, a powerful path for awakening latent spiritual energies through breath, awareness, and devotion. Those who have encountered him describe not a person, but a presence, beyond form, beyond individuality. Through Babaji, the timeless essence of the Himalayas continues to whisper in the hearts of true seekers. One of Babaji's greatest gifts to the world was passed through Lahiri Mahasaya, then to Yukteswar, and finally to the radiant soul who would carry it to the West. Paramahansa Yogananda. Yogananda's journey from Bengal to America was not just a physical voyage, but a spiritual mission destined to change the face of modern spirituality. His book, Autobiography of a Yogi, became a scripture for the modern age, read by saints and scientists, artists and seekers alike. He spoke not of blind belief, but of direct experience. Through the practice of Kriya Yoga, he offered a technology for self-realization, a method for diving into the stillness where the soul meets the infinite. Yogananda lived not only in temples, but in lecture halls, among businessmen, scientists, and musicians. He broke down the barriers between East and West, between science and spirituality. He said that the true temple is within, and the true priest is your breath. His life was a symphony of divine love and practical wisdom, blending devotion and discipline, beauty and stillness. He reminded us that God is not a concept, but an experience, and that experience lives within our own spine, in the sacred river of energy flowing through us all. In the lineage of those who walked both the earth and the heavens, we must speak of Sadhguru Sivaya Subramuniyaswami, a rare bridge between the depths of ancient Shaivism and the modern world. An American-born mystic, He received his awakening in Sri Lanka under the guidance of his guru Yogaswami. Subramuniyaswami did not merely study tradition, he became it. Through his global ministry and his establishment of the Kauai Hindu Monastery in Hawaii, he preserved the purity of classical Hindu teachings while making them accessible to a global audience. His master course, writings, and the vibrant magazine, Hinduism Today, continue to educate and inspire seekers across cultures and continents. Subramuniyaswami taught that the soul evolves through disciplined living, daily worship, and deep meditation. He emphasized the importance of the guru-shishya relationship, the sanctity of family life, and the power of inner transformation through steady practice. His voice, calm and unwavering, was a call to remember who we are, not just as bodies, not just as minds, but as radiant souls on an ancient journey home. His work was not innovation, but restoration, a revival of a way of life rooted in divine order, inner purity, and spiritual sovereignty. And then, in a world spiraling toward materialism and spiritual forgetfulness, came a monk who would ignite a global movement, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. At the age when most seek rest, he boarded a cargo ship to the United States, carrying nothing but a trunk of books and the name of Krishna in his heart. What followed was nothing short of miraculous. Within a few short years, the Hare Krishna movement blossomed across the planet. Temples rose, devotees danced, and the holy names of Krishna resounded in streets, parks, and hearts far from their birthplace. Prabhupada brought not just a message, but a vibration, the bhakti of ancient India alive in the rhythm of drums and the fragrance of prasadam. He translated and commented on the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, rendering them accessible yet uncompromising in spiritual integrity. His vision was not limited to ritual or dogma, but a life of joyful surrender, devotional service, and constant remembrance of God. Through him, Krishna's flute echoed once again, not in Vrindavan alone, but in New York, London, Tokyo, and beyond. Each of these gurus walked a unique path, yet all pointed toward the same center, the inner self, the eternal witness. They did not create new truths, but reminded us of the one truth hidden behind all names and forms. Some spoke in poetry, others in silence. Some challenged the world, others withdrew from it. But in every case, their lives became teachings, their presence became portals, and their legacy became a living invitation. Come home to who you are. This is the silent revolution that began in the depths of time. A revolution not of violence, but of vision, not of politics, but of perception. It began not with a shout, but with a breath, with one being daring to close their eyes and look within. And it continues, even now, in the hearts of those who sit in meditation, who chant the names of the divine, who serve others with love, and who dare to ask the question, what is beyond all of this? These masters did not seek to form religions, but to dissolve illusions. They did not ask for worship, but for awakening. And they did not live for themselves, but for the upliftment of all beings. Their power came not from control, but from surrender, not from wealth, but from wisdom. And their message remains as urgent today as it was centuries ago. The divine is not outside you, it is you. As the modern world accelerates, many feel lost in noise, speed, and confusion. Yet the light lit by these beings continues to shine. It is a fire that cannot be extinguished, for it does not belong to any one person. It belongs to the eternal. And whenever a soul turns inward, whenever a breath becomes prayer, whenever silence becomes alive, these masters return, not in form, but in essence. In the 20th century, as humanity faced unprecedented technological growth and spiritual fragmentation, new voices emerged from the depths of timeless wisdom. Among them was Sri Aurobindo, a revolutionary turned rishi, whose vision was nothing less than the evolution of human consciousness. To him, enlightenment was not an escape from the world, but a transformation of it. He saw the divine not only in silence, but in action, in the dynamism of life itself. Through integral yoga, he mapped a path that embraced the totality of existence, body, mind, soul, and spirit, as a unified field of divine becoming. Sri Aurobindo's epic work, Savitri, is more than a poem. It is a revelation of the soul's journey through darkness and light, a modern scripture that whispers the secrets of destiny and grace. Alongside him stood the Mother, his spiritual collaborator, whose presence was both fierce and compassionate, grounding his vision into living reality. Together, they established the spiritual city of Auroville, a living experiment in human unity and conscious evolution. In their eyes, every human being was a god in the making, every moment a portal to the infinite. And then came a voice that would shake the foundations of conventional spirituality. Rajneesh, later known as Osho, was a mystic who refused to be confined by tradition. He challenged every dogma, every blind belief, every form of inner slavery. To Osho, life itself was divine, and meditation was the art of living fully, fearlessly, and consciously. He spoke not only of liberation, but of love, creativity, laughter, and presence. His discourses, sharp, poetic, and often paradoxical, pierced through layers of conditioning, inviting people to rediscover their original being. Osho created not just teachings, but a living experiment of consciousness through his ashram, later an international commune. Despite controversies and misunderstandings, his essence remained untouched, a burning fire of awareness. He did not preach renunciation, but celebration, not control, but freedom. He spoke to the modern mind with ancient wisdom and to ancient hearts with modern language. His vision was vast, rebellious, and yet rooted in the deepest silence. To sit with Osho, even through his words, was to feel the presence of the eternal trickster, the master of paradox, who shattered illusions only to reveal the formless beauty beneath. In parallel, India saw the rise of Satya Sai Baba, a figure both adored and enigmatic. With his trademark afro and orange robe, he attracted millions, not through doctrine, but through acts of grace, miracles, healings, and above all, his message of universal love and selfless service. "Love all, serve all," he said. "Help ever, hurt never." His presence transcended religion, caste, and nationality. To his devotees, he was not just a guru, but an avatar, a direct manifestation of the divine. Sai Baba's mission was to restore Dharma through education, healthcare, and inner transformation. He built hospitals where the poor received world-class care without cost. He built schools that taught both science and spirituality. But above all, he built hearts, bridges of compassion that linked people across the globe. He did not ask for followers, but for lovers of truth. His silence often spoke louder than his words, and his life became a testimony to what is possible when divinity walks in human form. As the world entered the 21st century, amidst digital revolutions and existential crises, another voice began to rise, calm, articulate, and grounded. Sadhguru, a yogi from southern India, emerged not from scripture, but from direct experience. After a profound inner awakening on a mountain peak, he dedicated his life to sharing tools for transformation. Through the Isha Foundation, he brought ancient yogic science to millions across the planet, not as belief, but as inner engineering, a methodology for stillness, clarity, and boundless energy. Sadhguru speaks the language of the modern world, but from the depths of ancient knowing. He addresses CEOs and seekers, scientists and farmers, offering simple yet profound practices to recalibrate human life from within. His emphasis is not on belief systems, but on experiential truth. In a world craving connection, he points inward. In a society addicted to stimulation, he invites stillness. His presence, humble and powerful, carries the lineage of countless sages, yet is fully alive in the present moment. What unites these masters, ancient and modern, silent and outspoken, is their unwavering commitment to human awakening. They did not merely teach meditation techniques or philosophies. They transmitted a presence, a frequency, a remembrance of something eternal within each of us. They knew that beyond the masks we wear, beyond our histories and hopes, lies a space untouched by time, unsullied by pain, a space of pure awareness. And from that space, they acted. Whether in silence or speech, renunciation or revolution, they channeled forces greater than themselves. They were instruments of Dharma, carriers of a light that refuses to be extinguished. And in doing so, they left behind more than temples or teachings. They left behind a vibration, a field of consciousness that continues to awaken those ready to listen, ready to look within. It is not necessary to become a monk or a mystic to walk this path. It is only necessary to remember. To sit for a moment each day and turn the gaze inward. To breathe with awareness. To walk with compassion. To speak with truth. to live as if the divine is not somewhere far away, but closer than your next heartbeat. The story of the great gurus is not over. It lives on in every act of kindness, every moment of stillness, every soul that chooses truth over comfort. Their footsteps are etched in eternity, but their path begins right where you are, on the ground beneath your feet, in the breath you now inhale, in the silence behind your thoughts. Among the mysterious figures whose influence transcends history is Mahavatar Babaji, a name that echoes like a whisper across centuries. Said to be the deathless yogi, the ageless guardian of Kriya Yoga, Babaji appears and disappears at will, manifesting only when the time is ripe. Though he left no ashram, no written teachings, his presence has shaped the course of spiritual evolution through the ones he touched. His influence radiates silently through the lives of those he initiated, like Lahiri Mahasaya, Yukteswar, and Yogananda. He is not a symbol of the past, but a living presence, eternal, vigilant, ever watching from the Himalayan silence. It is through Babaji's lineage that the sacred science of Kriya Yoga flowed into the world once more. In the early 20th century, it reached the West through a young, radiant yogi named Paramahansa Yogananda. His mission was clear and vast, to bridge East and West, to offer the ancient science of self-realization to the modern soul. His book, Autobiography of a Yogi, became a spiritual classic, awakening countless seekers to the reality of inner transformation. With gentle clarity and deep devotion, Yogananda taught that true religion is not in belief, but in direct communion with the divine. Through self-realization, fellowship, he established centers of practice where Kriya Yoga became not just a technique, but a path to inner mastery. He spoke of God as joy, as love, as the very essence of one's being. His voice, calm and unwavering, carried the fragrance of the Himalayas into the heart of Western cities. Even in his silence, his eyes spoke volumes. He reminded humanity that the kingdom of heaven is within, and that to find it, one must become still, utterly still, until the soul remembers its own radiance. From this sacred lineage arose another flame of clarity and structure. Sivaya Subramuniyaswami, a Western-born master who became one of the most respected voices in preserving traditional Shaivism. Initiated by a Tamil Siddha in Sri Lanka, he became the bridge between the mystical East and the globalized West. His teachings were both profound and practical, offering seekers not only the depths of yogic understanding, but the tools to live a dharmic life in the modern world. He emphasized discipline, devotion, and the sacredness of daily life. Through the Himalayan Academy and the publication Hinduism Today, Subramuniyaswami brought the timeless truths of Sanatana Dharma into homes across the world. He demystified complex traditions without diluting their essence. He believed in the power of inner clarity and the importance of family, temple worship, and the guru-shishya lineage. His monastery in Hawaii became a sanctuary of peace, a living expression of sacred tradition rooted in stillness and service. With crystal-like simplicity, he showed that enlightenment is not a concept, but a lifestyle, a state of soul maturity that can be cultivated every day. In the wave of global spiritual awakening, another voice rang out, clear, resolute, and rhythmic. A.C. Bhaktivedanta. Swami Prabhupada, founder of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, carried the bhakti movement to the world with unwavering faith. In his 70s, with little money and no institutional support, he set sail from India to America. What he carried was not just a message, it was the living energy of divine love, chanted in the holy names of Krishna. Prabhupada translated and explained the Bhagavad Gita, the Srimad Bhagavatam, and other sacred texts with deep reverence and accessible language. He established temples across continents, planting the seed of devotion in countless hearts. Through mantra, kirtan, and community service, he revived the essence of bhakti, love of God expressed through joy, surrender, and simplicity. In the face of materialism and confusion, he offered a path of sacred remembrance, chanting the name of the divine with childlike trust and unwavering discipline. The movement he began did not only build temples, it built lives rooted in humility, integrity, and service. His presence, though no longer physical, continues to inspire a vibrant global community, unified by the sound of sacred names and the practice of devotional living. He proved that even in an age of distraction, the heart can still sing and the soul can still dance in divine ecstasy. And yet, even with all these giants who walked before us, the journey is not over. For every era calls forth its own voice, its own light-bearer, to speak the language of the time. These teachers, ancient and modern, were not meant to be worshipped as distant idols. They are living mirrors, pointing us back to the source within ourselves. They came not to create followers, but to awaken masters. Not to build systems, but to dissolve illusions. Their lives remind us that spiritual evolution is not linear. It spirals, deepens, and returns. It begins in the stillness of the forest, passes through the cities of change, and returns to the eternal silence within. From the caves of the Himalayas to the temples of the heart, from solitary meditation to global movements, the journey is the same. It is the journey home. The spiritual revolution they began is not measured in numbers or followers, but in the subtle shifts of human awareness. It is seen in moments of compassion, in the breaking of inner chains, in the courage to face one's own shadow. It is felt when we choose peace over pride, truth over illusion, love over fear. It is in these quiet victories that the gurus live on. The thread that unites them is not a single philosophy, practice, or path. It is presence, that unshakable stillness that witnesses all things and yet is untouched. They spoke from that stillness, acted from it, and returned to it. And they left a trail for us to follow, not outwardly, but inwardly, into the sacred chamber of the self, where the real guru always resides. In recent decades, As the world accelerated in complexity and distraction, there emerged a voice grounded in clarity and practical wisdom, Sadhguru. With eyes that pierce illusion and words that cut through mental fog, he became one of the most prominent spiritual figures of our time. Unlike the ascetics of old, he walked amidst the world, engaging with science, society, and seekers alike. His teachings echoed ancient truths, but were expressed in the language of the present. Sadhguru did not ask people to believe, but to experience. His method was direct. If something works, try it. If not, leave it. With this approach, he demystified yogic science and brought it to millions across the globe. Through the Isha Foundation, he launched powerful inner engineering programs, reintroducing ancient yogic processes with precision and scientific integrity. He did not separate the sacred from the secular, but revealed the sacredness within the secular. Whether addressing world leaders or farmers, his message remained the same. Transformation begins within. His initiatives extended beyond the spiritual. With campaigns like Save Soil and Rally for Rivers, he reminded humanity that our inner and outer environments are deeply intertwined. Spirituality, in his vision, was not an escape from life, but a deeper embrace of it, a flowering of responsibility, consciousness, and care. In a time of existential doubt, his presence offered not just answers, but a method to dissolve the questions themselves. Each of these masters, in their own way, embodied a unique aspect of the eternal. Some taught through silence, others through speech. Some founded movements, others simply lived their truth. Some were fierce like fire, others gentle like the moon, but all of them were rooted in a dimension beyond personality. Their lives were not personal stories, but divine expressions moving through form. And that is what gave their words power and their presence gravity. We often imagine the guru as a distant figure, someone to be revered from afar. But the real guru is not bound to a body or form. The real guru is the destroyer of darkness, the inner catalyst that burns ignorance and reveals truth. The outer teacher is only a reflection of this inner force. When we are ready, the guru appears, not just as a person, but as a mirror of our highest potential. As the ancient saying goes, when the disciple is ready, the master appears. But what we forget is, when the disciple is truly ready, the master disappears. Across time, the teachings of these gurus have always pointed to one thing: your own awakening. They did not come to gather followers, but to scatter seeds of awareness. Their revolutions were not political, but spiritual, shifting the axis of human perception from outer acquisition to inner realization. And they did it not through force, but through presence, not through persuasion, but through radiance. They were walking temples, living scriptures, moving flames of the eternal. It is easy to look back at these lives and be in awe. But they never asked for worship. They asked for transformation. They lived as examples so that we might live more fully. They showed us that enlightenment is not a luxury or a myth. It is the most natural state of being. A return to what we already are beneath the layers of conditioning and fear. They did not claim monopoly on truth, they pointed to the truth within everyone. The rishis of ancient India, sitting under the starlit sky, saw the same reality that modern masters speak of today. The context has changed, the language has evolved, but the essence is untouched. Whether it is Vasishtha speaking in the Yoga Vasishtha or Sadhguru addressing a global audience, the invitation remains. Know yourself, not conceptually, but experientially, not as an identity, but as pure presence. From the caves of the Himalayas to the screens in our hands, the journey continues. Technology has changed the vehicle, but not the destination. The human longing for liberation, for truth, for the divine, is timeless. It pulses through every era, every culture, every soul. And in every era, the great ones arise, not as saviors, but as reminders. Reminders of what we have forgotten and what we are destined to remember. To walk the path of the Guru is not to imitate, but to awaken. It is to move beyond dependence and discover direct experience. It is to shift from belief to knowing, from noise to silence, from fragmentation to wholeness. The path is not always easy. It requires courage, surrender, and relentless honesty. But it leads to the only freedom that matters, the freedom from illusion, from fear, from separation. Each of these teachers faced obstacles, inner and outer. They were criticized, misunderstood, sometimes even opposed. But they never compromised the truth. Their lives were not perfect in the worldly sense, but they were complete. Not because they followed rules, but because they followed inner clarity. They lived what they taught, and taught what they lived. And that is why their legacy endures. You are not separate from this story. These are not just historical figures, they are reflections of your own potential. What you admire in them lives dormant within you. The stillness of Ramana, the clarity of Shankara, the compassion of Ramakrishna, the fearlessness of Vivekananda, the intensity of Osho, the devotion of Prabhupada, the pragmatism of Sadhguru, all these qualities are your own waiting to be remembered. From the silence of the forests where the rishis meditated to the roaring stadiums where modern gurus address tens of thousands, the message remains unchanged. You are not the body. You are not the mind. You are consciousness, vast, formless, eternal. The teachers never asked us to become like them. They asked us to become who we truly are. Shiva himself, the first yogi, sat in stillness, unmoved by the cosmos swirling around him. From his presence, the stream of yogic knowledge began. It flowed into the hearts of the rishis, who preserved it not in books, but in their very being. They passed it to seekers through initiation, silence, and presence. This river of transmission has never stopped. It has only changed its banks. Adi Shankara restructured this river into a philosophy, Advaita Vedanta, that could be taught and spread. He was not just a philosopher, but a revolutionary who walked the length of India to revive the essence of oneness. For him, the world was not to be renounced, but understood as the dance of the One. He planted seeds that still blossom in the minds of seekers today. Ramakrishna, in his divine madness, showed that every path leads to the same peak. His devotion was so pure, so intense, that even skeptics could not remain untouched. Vivekananda took that flame and carried it to the West. He stood in Chicago and declared the unity of all religions, not with arrogance, but with the quiet confidence of one who had seen the truth. Ramana Maharshi returned us to the most ancient question: who am I? With no movement, with no argument, he brought countless seekers into direct contact with their source. He lived and died in silence, and yet his presence continues to echo through the consciousness of those who sit in stillness. Osho shattered conventions, exposed hypocrisies, and invited humanity to live with total intensity. He was not interested in followers. He wanted awakened individuals. His voice cut through centuries of guilt and repression. He reminded us that to be spiritual is to be fully alive. Sai Baba reminded millions of the power of service, selflessness, and love. His miracles, whether real or symbolic, pointed beyond the physical. He stood as a reminder that divinity is not limited to temples or books. It can walk among us, heal us, and remind us of our own light. Sri Aurobindo offered a vision of evolution, not biological, but spiritual. He saw humanity not as the end, but as a bridge to a new being, a supramental consciousness. His work, continued by the Mother, laid the foundation for the next stage of our journey beyond duality and division. Bhaktivedanta Swami. Prabhupada crossed the ocean with only a trunk of scriptures and a heart full of devotion. What seemed impossible became a global movement. Through the chanting of the holy name, he awakened the longing for God in the hearts of millions. He did not merely preach Krishna, he lived Krishna. Paramahansa Yogananda brought Kriya Yoga to the world, not as a philosophy, but as a living science. His autobiography of a yogi became a spiritual classic, touching the minds of scientists, musicians, mystics. He reminded us that behind all religions lies a single path, the path of self-realization. Sivaya Subramuniyaswami, a Western-born master, bridged East and West in a way few others did. He devoted his life to reviving and preserving the ancient Saiva Siddhanta teachings, establishing temples and spiritual centers across the globe. His life showed that truth recognizes no race or birth. It seeks only sincerity and surrender. And Mahavatar Babaji, the timeless master who appears when needed, but never ages or dies. His story is a mystery, yet his influence is undeniable. He is the thread that connects many paths, the silent guardian of the ancient science of Kriya. For many, he is a symbol. For some, a real guide. For all, an invitation to rise above time and ego. All these masters stand not as separate stars, but as a constellation. Together, they form a map, a celestial guide for those who seek the highest truth. Their lives are not to be imitated, but contemplated. Their teachings are not dogmas, but doors. They do not offer answers, but keys. What you do with those keys is up to you. You can hold them, admire them, even worship them. Or you can use them to unlock the gate of your own heart, to step beyond fear, beyond desire, beyond identity, to know yourself not as a name, not as a story, but as pure awareness. That is the revolution. That is the silence. Now, if this journey has moved something within you, let that feeling guide your next steps. In the comments, write the affirmation, "I walk the path of inner truth." It will be a signal to yourself, to others, to life, that you are ready. Ready to remember. Ready to rise. And if you feel the presence of these teachings in your own heart, support this channel by subscribing, leaving a like, and sharing this video with others who walk this path. Together, we keep the flame alive. Together, we continue the story. From silence to revolution, from ego to essence, from illusion to liberation. The path is open. The masters have walked before us. Now it is our turn.